a large circle, and then tells you that all of the knowledge of the universe is represented inside that circle. In other words, inside the circle is all knowledge. Then they tell you to slice off a part, the part that you know about. In other words, a small section down here of the information we know about. Then they tell you that God could exist in the part that you have admitted knowing nothing about. That's the remaining large section. He continues, I have to admit that I got stung on this one. I know you don't go outside the Bible much, but how can we answer this one? I've been searching all the great freethinkers, and so far I haven't found an answer. Unquote. My response was, are you sure you searched all the great freethinkers? Because this is not a particularly difficult problem. The key words are could exist. God could exist in that unknown void, but then again, so could a million other things. I'm not saying God isn't in that void, but your questioner is saying He is. He's the one claiming superior knowledge, knowledge beyond that of everyday experience. He's the one alleging that he knows something exists in that part about which he knows nothing, that large section. My permanent response to contentions of this nature, contentions of this kind, has always involved a request for proof. As I have said on many occasions, the burden of proof lies on he who alleges. The contender is obligated to provide evidence, something beyond mere intuition, while I'm not required to prove anything in this regard. The burden is on his shoulders. After all, he's the one that keeps bringing up the idea. If someone tells me that people live inside the planet Mars, or they talked to Jesus this morning, that is, Jesus in the flesh, they are required to prove that's true. I'm not required to prove it's false. If I had to do the proving, that would mean every crackpot, weirdo, half-baked, thrown-together theory, every one imaginable, every weird theory imaginable was true until someone proved they were false. Now, how can I prove people didn't live inside the planet Mars? A basic rule of science and logic is, if you claim it, you prove it. Without proof, it's not to be accepted as true. Those who claim face the pain. Our second and final letter issues a challenge to all those who believe the Bible has no errors. That it's the infallible Word of God. After reading it, I wrote in our publication, how'd you like to earn $10,000? A Jewish organization in Israel, the Jerusalem Institute of Biblical Polemics, which puts out a newsletter entitled Biblical Polemics, has offered $1,000 to any biblicist for each of 10 challenges he or she could surmount. I would think that every biblicist, every fundamentalist, every evangelical, indeed every apologist for the Bible would jump upon this as an easy opportunity to earn some quick cash. If the book holds together as well as they say it does, as well as they claim, there should be no problem. No reason to dilly-dally. $1,000 will be given, and I believe this offer still stands, at least at last count it did, to any believer, $1,000 to any believer who can find one, any verse in the Old Testament that says Abraham bought a sepulcher for a sum of money from the sons of Amor, as is recorded in Acts 7:16 in the New Testament. 2. Any verse in the Old Testament that says Jacob was buried in Shechem, as is recorded in Acts 7:15-16 in the New Testament. 3. Any verse in the Old Testament that says 75 souls went down into Egypt with Jacob, as is recorded in Acts 7:14. 4. Any verse in the Bible, any verse, that says a virgin shall bear a child, as is recorded in Matthew 1:23 in the New Testament. If you'll recall, we discussed that in our program on Messianic prophecies. 5. Any prophet in the Old Testament who said, he shall be called a Nazarene, as is recorded in Matthew 2:23 of the New Testament. Again, if you'll recall, we also discussed that in our program on Messianic prophecies. 6. Any passage in the book of the prophet Jeremiah speaks of a pot and 30 pieces of silver, as is recorded in Matthew 27:9-10 in the New Testament. 7. Any mention in the Old Testament of a son of perdition, as is recorded in John 17:12 in the New Testament. 8. Any verse in the Old Testament that says the Torah, of course that being the first 5 books of the Bible, was given by angels, as is claimed in Acts 7:53 and Galatians 3:19 of the New Testament. 9. Any place in the Old Testament where it says that when Elijah returns, he will have his head chopped off, as is recorded in Mark 6:16 and 9:11-13. And 10. Any place in the Old Testament where it says that the Jews killed Zacharias, son of Barachias, as is recorded in Matthew 23:35. So there you have it. $1,000 for each problem solved. To all those who take the Bible as God's inerrant word, I say, you better hurry. Don't delay. Act now and submit your replies. Remember, $10,000 awaits your arrival. Write to Post Office Box 9773, Jerusalem, Israel, 191, and read your solutions. That completes our presentation. And please join us later for the 40th edition of Biblical Errancy Commentary, when we'll continue showing why the Bible is nothing more than the flawed composition of some fallible human beings. Thank you for listening.